All right. Hello, hello, and welcome to our Hormone Freedom Hour conversation today. I'm so excited to be here. And today's conversation is something that I think is often overlooked in the world, especially in the world of information. We are living in the world where there's so much information about perimenopause and menopause and women's health and hormone changes, which I absolutely love. But today's topic is what if the hidden programs underneath it all are really running the show, and why more information isn't going to create the change that you're wanting with your metabolism and your energy and your mood and your overall vitality. So if you're tuning in and joining us, we're live streaming to a couple of platforms. I want to welcome those that are tuning in live, joining us live real time. Hello, great to be here with you. I know we have Instagram and Facebook as well as some other different platforms. And if you're going to be catching the replay, please type in the comment replay, and then we'll come back and answer if you have any questions or anything that pops up. My goal is to help support you and be here to answer any questions, anything that can help you feel empowered and clear in your health. But really when it comes to hormone health and women's health, I talk to women every single week, and every single client session, they're describing the frustration that they felt before getting empowered and before having clarity. It's like if you're still struggling with 3 a.m. wake up calls in the morning, middle of the night, if midsection gain around your abdomen, that seems like no matter how hard you diet or are intentional with tracking your macros and watching your food, it doesn't seem to budge. It doesn't seem to shift. Then I want you to know you're in the right place. And today we're going to actually be diving deeper on some of the underlying programs that may be affecting your health that are less talked about. Honestly, these are the things that are less frequently talked about, especially in the world of functional medicine. Obviously the women that I work with and support, and Helen and I, we do a lot of comprehensive support. We're all about holistic, whole human empowerment and healing. So we're talking about things like cortisol and managing your cortisol rhythms and understanding where your hormone levels are, your estrogen and your testosterone, and how that affects, you know, mood, how that affects sleep, how that affects even your cravings. And yet another part of the conversation that I think is less forefront is understanding our neurology, our nervous system. Our nervous system is so critical because it drives, if we think about that HPAT axis of interconnectedness, that many of you have heard me talk about this, how our hormones are all interconnected. They're working in a soup together. Nothing is isolated. And one part of that equation, so if your body goes into that fight or flight stress response, it's going to have a cumulative effect on your adrenals, on your immune system, on your thyroid and your metabolism, slowing down, that energy production. It's going to have an effect even on your ability to sleep peacefully and get restorative, like healing that happens and cleansing that happens throughout the night. Your sleep architecture changes. So when we talk about the nervous system, one of the core things is to understand how we all have neurological programs. First of all, I want to take a moment to welcome Mitzi and Jerry and Jackie and others that are tuning in live. If you're tuning in live, thanks so much for being here. Feel free to put any questions that are coming up. I'm happy to kind of ad lib and answer any questions that are coming up. Hi, Liz. Great to see you. Hi, Nicole. Great to have you here with us today. And like I said, we love your advice. Great, Liz. Always so fun to be looking at some of those deeper underlying programs and how this could be really at play affecting your health today. I'm going to make some correlations here because we know that obviously our brain has two different parts of the brain, right? We have the conscious mind, the things that we're actively thinking about. Hi, Mia, the best. Great to see you. Things that we're actually aware of and thinking about, making conscious decisions and choices and behaviors every day. However, what many people don't realize is that the significant majority of our habits, our choices, our decisions are actually driven by our unconscious mind. For example, Our brain is super powerful. It's capable of processing an average of 11 million pieces of data per second. Yes, 11 million. That's kind of mind-boggling. Every single second, new inputs and information are coming in through all of our different five senses. However, we're only consciously aware of about 40 of those pieces of information. So that means every single second that the remaining 10,999,960,000 pieces of data are unconscious. That's just to give you a perspective of the ratio of impact between conscious mind and unconscious mind. And so your brain is consistently filling in that missing data. It's consistently generalizing, deleting, and distorting our perception, what we believe or what we are aware of. It's selectively selective. And the worldview that you're perceiving at any minute, any second, any circumstance of your day is actually more significantly about what's happening in your unconscious mind or what has happened in your past than what is happening right now in front of you. Why does this matter for our health? And what does this have to do with estrogen and testosterone and most importantly, cortisol and the nervous system? Well, like I said, you've heard me talk about how the nervous system is a core driver in all hormone health, right? And your health habits may be running on old programs. So when we think about trying to make some healthy choices and healthy habits and the things we're learning about and all the Instagram reels that you can see about eating more protein and making sure you're doing your strength training, your brain learned at your early age what was considered safe, what was acceptable, what was praised, like what did your parents highlight and give you encouragement and attention for. You also learned what was punished, what was normal, right? What was happening in society, what you witnessed around you. And typically, a large majority of those unconscious programs are established and kind of downloaded into your unconscious mind between the ages of 0 and 7. I want to repeat that. So think about this. If up to 95% of your habits, your choices, your actions, your decisions, your perceptions today are based on your unconscious programs. And a large majority of those programs were downloaded between the ages of 0, your birth, and age 7. Kind of shakes us up a little bit because let's think about how those early templates that were downloaded shape your body's relationships to food, to rest, to doctors, to how your body works, to how you understand or relate to your emotions and how you think about asking for support, right? Oftentimes, what we saw and witnessed or what was modeled at that stage in our life may look very different than what we know is useful or valuable or preferred to optimize our health, especially after age 40, because we know, and we've talked about this, that your hormone levels change as estrogen and progesterone levels start to decline and to change. Your sensitivity to cortisol, your sensitivity to blood sugar swings, your sensitivity to stress gets amplified. So in midlife, your changing hormones reduce your margin for those old unconscious patterns. So what used to work, maybe in your 20s, in your 30s, you could get away with it, or you didn't have to even think about it. You didn't even have to really know what those old patterns were because you were able to go through life and continue on just fine. They no longer fit. So I'm just going to pause here as we're going to go through some like examples of what was most common between the ages of 1966 and 1986. That's when many of us were born, somewhere in that range between 1966 and 86. What were the common environmental cues? What were the programs that we saw and we modeled that were being downloaded in our unconscious mind? But before I do that, if you're in that space, we're running a special right now through the end of the month for the next couple of days. The Hormone Freedom 30-Day Clarity Experience is created for women just like you who are tired of feeling stuck and frustrated, and you want some new clarity, some new distinctions about what is blocking your health improvements today. Normally this is $997, but for now, for these few days, we're running it again. We're opening up some spots for those of you to step in for full 30 days of support for only $497. This is your chance to get that one-on-one customized high-level experience that only our Hormone Freedom Method one-on-one personal clients get. You get mentorship. We meet individually to go through your exact hormone freedom assessment. We look through a comprehensive health history and symptom checklist so we can see what your body is signaling needs help and support first, and help you identify that first one, maybe two action steps so you can get some real traction and see notable change in your energy levels, in your metabolism, in your mood, in just 30 days. Plus, you get weekly coaching support from me, as well as additional refinement and adjustments along the way. So again, put that link in if you're tuning in and you want that hand-holding, that level of personalized support for a full 30 days. Make the month of July a kickstart and momentum in your health for the rest of the year. Then now's your chance to grab one of those spots for the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience. And let's talk a little bit more about those unconscious programs that were common. Think about between 1966 and 1986. This is when many of us were born, right? Between those first 7 years of life. The things that we saw modeled around us are, think of like Susie Homemaker. A good woman takes care of everyone else's needs first, right? That was the norm. That was very common. We thought also weight is a measure of the number on the scale. That's what indicated whether somebody was healthy or what they thought about their body and their weight. It was ignoring, strength and energy and digestion and sleep and mood. Those were typically not part of the conversations. It was all about what is the number on the scale. And it really focused on restriction and obsession. I mean, honestly, we learned at that time that fat is bad. Calories are the enemy. Think of the fat-free craze, like fat. It was all around, everything had labels like fat-free, no fat, low fat. We focused on eat less, move more. That was the mentality. Weight Watchers was founded in 1963. So there was a huge emphasis on reducing, cutting, restricting what we were eating as a way to be healthy. Right now, again, I understand that logically, many of us now know or are learning that that's not serving women today anymore. But what we consciously are aware of and what we logically think about is very different than what is unconsciously feeling safe for your nervous system. So that's the difference, is recognizing, like, even if we have conscious awareness of things, that incongruence with our nervous system's programs is what gets to shift. Some other norms that were common between the early to late 60s all the way through the early 80s is that you go to the doctor and your doctor fixes your health problems, typically by outsourcing your body's authority. By, instead of becoming an informed partner in your care, it was pretty much to go to the doctor's going to tell you what's wrong and give you a medication to take for the problem, or prescribe a procedure to take to fix the problem, right? You were not really an active participant who was becoming informed, who was really giving feedback and brainstorming and creative collaborating for how to optimize your health. That was just not the norm at that time in our culture. Also at that time, it was expected that if your labs were fine, if things were in that common reference range, then you were considered healthy. So not until things became diagnosable was it considered a problematic scenario. Emotions were often thought of as inconvenient. We as women were thought to, like, don't complain, don't make a fuss, just push through. This creates that chronic sympathetic activation. It creates a likelihood of anxiety or anxiousness, but you don't necessarily talk about your challenges. Like, that's not something that you need to air your dirty laundry type of a thing. Women should be low maintenance. You don't need too much. You don't need to cause a fuss. You kind of just dismiss your needs and don't cause a scene, right? These were the norms in our culture. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is where we are today at all, but what's often under-recognized is that the unconscious part of our programs are creating the safety and the security for our nervous system. So if we want our nervous system to feel safe enough to release weight, to optimize our metabolism, to allow us to take a break and give adequate self-care, to put you on your calendar. Like, how many times have you looked at your calendar for the week and do you actually have an appointment that says, ooh, my massage or my meditation time or my workout, right? Like, it's so easy for us as women to have everyone else's needs on our calendar, right? We have our work appointments and meetings. We have even driving carpool for kids' activities. We have even sometimes it's parents' doctor's appointments that we're taking them to. So we have everyone else's needs on our calendar. But oftentimes when I ask women as clients, I'll be like, oh, so let's look at your calendar. Let's see where your health is showing up on your calendar. Is it on there? And that's just a result of old programs. There's no blame, there's no shame. It's just learning some new things. So, what we get to think about in 2026 for women's health, here's what we know to be true: that midlife is not just about aging, it's a whole biological transition in your body. Your body is changing, and it's before any traditional labs can actually diagnose something, your body is going through that hormonal shift, which is affecting many different systems and many different areas of your life. That's why you feel it in terms of your mood. That's why you feel it in terms of your sleep changes. That's why you feel it even with metabolism and weight changes. We also know now in 2026 that muscle is a hormone healthy priority. This is not just like a fitness goal, it's a health longevity necessity, right? So that is an important part. But think back to the, again, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, that was not the norm to see women doing strength training exercises. It was more like the Jane Fonda era of like, oh, let's do some leg lifts in with our, think of those like leg warmers type things. That was not about maintaining and building lean muscle tissue and strength. That was what was modeled. That was what was downloaded into our unconscious as this is healthy. This is what women do. Right? We also know that in 2026, GLP-1 medications are changing the weight loss conversation. They're really a valuable tool for some women. However, they do not replace metabolic support. So along with those GLP-1 medications, there's a really important conversation and behaviors and practices to ensure that you do set yourself up for longevity, to maintain that muscle mass, to be able to maintain that cardiovascular health. In 2026, we know that self-prioritization is not selfish. It's actually what allows you to show up as the most grounded, centered, supportive, loving, compassionate, and valuable version of yourself. So it is an important part of your life. And we also know that strategic fueling and nourishment, especially with adequate protein, is necessary. But here's what happens is those old programs, like I talked about what happens in our early years before age 7, and today's new model, today's new health routines sometimes don't blend. It's like oil trying to mix with water, right? And so in midlife, these new health routines can feel like an internal battle to stay consistent. Because consciously, you know what would be good for you and you know what you would prefer to do and what would be helpful. But your unconscious mind is choosing survival. It is choosing what it has always expected and learned will keep you safe, what is acceptable, and what is the norm, right? And so if we're not even really looking at how to blend these two, your conscious mind wants you to have more ease, wants you to have more confidence, wants you to have more consistency. And your unconscious mind may still be running those old, outdated programs around food. Eat less, move more, around rest, taking time to unplug, to recharge, to refuel. It may be running old programs around your worth and body size. Like, again, still being stuck that the number on the scale is how I feel happy, how I feel content and accepting of myself. And it's still maybe running those old programs around how you prioritize yourself. That feels selfish, or hesitate investing in your own health, right? Whether it's buying the Oura ring or getting the walking pad or having a health coach or someone to help you really understand and provide that loving encouragement and accountability. right? Midlife symptoms often reveal where those older, outdated programs no longer support your biology. So I just want to, excuse me, I just want to pause here and say, who's like seeing the disparity and the difference between those old, outdated 1970s, 1980 programs that we just saw that was common. There was nothing wrong with it then. People didn't know better. It wasn't a collective understanding as a society. We've gotten more knowledgeable. We have more information. We have more tools and more resources on how to understand women's health, how to understand this biological transition period that just candidly, it didn't exist before. So it wasn't ever studied. It wasn't understood. And that is a part of the missing piece, is how to support the nervous system in believing that this new pattern is safe. And this is where a huge part of the work, in addition to how are we thinking about nutrients, how are we supporting gut health and digestion, how are we supporting your daily movement and exercise rhythms that are going to work for your body. Another huge piece is emotional metabolism. If we don't have an active process or strategy or tools to become aware of the programs that are holding us back, the limiting beliefs, a lot of it's around believing I don't have enough time. I don't have time to sit down and have breakfast before I start my day. Or I don't have the energy or the bandwidth to fit in an afternoon break so that I can go get a nice walk outside and get some fresh air, right? So the healthy strategies that we all like logically know would be good for us, a lot of the challenge in being consistent really comes down to limiting beliefs about what's possible, about a lack of resources, a lack of time, a lack of support, a lack of knowledge. I don't know if it'll work for my body, right? Rather than recognizing our bodies are brilliant and they're just simply responding to the environment that they've been living in. And so when we can come in better partnership with our bodies, they will respond and they will heal. Our cells literally are regenerating all the time. So again, when we think about skipping this emotional metabolism piece, that's when you can't outplan an emotion, right? Your nervous system, especially if your nervous system has not processed this emotion, it will come up, whether that emotion is frustration, whether that emotion is, sadness, whether that emotion is a hurt and a feeling abandoned or rejected, whether that's fear and uncertainty and overwhelm. Our emotions that are not metabolized continue to come up and trigger the nervous system to go into that fight or flight response. And so that's why sometimes with women that we work with, we look at different areas of stress. And there can be stressors, there can be inflammation in the body, right? There can be stressors from injury or illness, physical stressors. There can be environmental stressors. If you have a lot of like toxic food that you're eating and it's highly chemicalized and processed, these are things that we can look at and we can definitely strategically, support. But if we're not looking at the mental emotional stressors of how often during a 24-hour period do you experience feelings of uncertainty or worry or feelings of frustration and irritation, any negative emotion, that's a cue that perhaps there's unmetabolized emotions that are holding your healing back. So when your body feels unsafe, it will hold on to fat for safety. It's literally not broken. It's doing what it was designed to do to keep you alive. It's keeping you alive. So until we include some of this emotional metabolism, until we can recognize how those old patterns are actually triggering these negative emotions and start to neutralize them, then we can create more space for deeper layers of parasympathetic healing, longer time spent with your body being in that anabolic, that build, refuel, refine, and replenish state, rather than a catabolic, break down, deplete, right? So again, just liking to share this conversation is sometimes that's part of the missing piece of the puzzle. And this is why we do in step 4 of our hormone freedom methods all about resetting your thoughts. And that literally means helping you to have a process. We have a couple different strategies and techniques that are highly advanced, cutting edge, that help to rewire those old programs. Once we can see for you specifically, I just shared some of the most common ones that are incongruent for women, but it's going to show up unique for your body. And once we can understand what those are, you can have techniques and strategies to neutralize those and to shift those old unconscious programs to create new ones that are supportive for signaling safety to your nervous system. So again, I do want to jump in here and share, if you haven't yet and you're in the space of saying like, now's the time to understand where your body is responding to first, then you can start by taking the free hormone freedom assessment. This takes about roughly 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. There's 18 questions. And it's not going to be diagnostic. It's not focused on cortisol and estrogen. It's focused on your daily lifestyle patterns and habits and routines and how this shows up in your body. So we can see which of the common 3 patterns is speaking the loudest for you. One of the patterns is stress response. That's the type 2. Again, very common. I see that one very often, and also energy and output fatigue. That's typically where there's a metabolism inefficiency. So either creating inflammation in the body and or slow, poor thyroid action. So that's that type 1 where there's energy and output fatigue. Is essentially your cells don't have what they need to keep up with the demand. They can't keep up with the demand that's being asked of them. So there's like this fatigue factor that kicks in. That can look like afternoon energy crashes. It can look like just not feeling fully rested. That's type 1. Type 2 is the stress response. We've talked about the stress a lot today and how those underlying old unconscious programs can be driving what your nervous system perceives as safe enough for you to be in that rest, digest, heal, optimize your metabolism, parasympathetic activation, or stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight, pumping out cortisol and adrenaline, preparing your body for, I don't know if I'm going to have enough resources. I have to conserve and hold on to fat, right? That slows the metabolism down in the long run. And then that type 3 that you can find in the hormone freedom assessment is fueling and digestion. This is another pattern that is very common where it actually starts to affect your gut health and challenges with absorbing and fully breaking down nutrients so that your cells can get the benefit of those nourishing foods that you are choosing. Because I have oftentimes when we'll be like, I'm eating really healthy, but I still don't feel energized. I still feel, bloated, distended, struggling with whether it be like bloated before breakfast or distended by the end of the day where you feel like you almost have a pregnancy belly. Sometimes it can look like increased food sensitivities where foods that used to be fine are no longer agreeing with you. These can be signs that there's a gut imbalance, that fueling and digestion challenges. So starting with the hormone freedom assessment is a great way to find out which pattern is asking for help first, like which is the loudest. And that's what we do in the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience. We start with that piece of the puzzle, as well as a comprehensive health history and symptom checklist. And that allows us to meet for a one-on-one session and build your personalized roadmap. And we'll take into account, like, is this a factor for you that some of these older unconscious programs may be signaling that stress response? And if so, what is going to be the strategy, the support to start to shift those and to rewrite some new programs, ones that are more empowering, that are more aligned with what we know is useful and beneficial in 2026, instead of staying stuck in 1976, right? So again, so great to be here with you. I hope this conversation was insightful. I'd love to hear, what was the takeaway? What was the thing that stood out to you the most? Maybe it was one of the programs. Maybe it was really thinking about the significance of how often our unconscious is usually running 90 to 95% of the time. So if you think about even when you're consciously creating meal plans and taking supplements and thinking about your exercise, that piece is important. But if that's only going to be 5, maybe 10% of the influence and the impact, we need to spend some time doing the emotional metabolism. Yeah, that's what Mitzi says. Again, the emotional metabolism is really what stood out. Like that is addressing that part of the equation is going to be a huge lever and a huge game changer for what you can create with finding that balance, finding that energy, finding that stability for your health goals and creating that momentum going forward. So if you're looking for support, like I said, now is your chance. Grab that special pricing for a limited time for the Hormone Freedom 30-day clarity experience. This is where we can partner together. You get support for a full 30 days. And we customize this for you, for where your body is today, what's happening right now, and what's going to allow you to get some traction and momentum right away. And if you haven't yet, start with that free hormone freedom assessment. That's going to give you your entry point in our hormone cascade of change, that transition. We talked about that biological transition. This is where you know what your body is signaling that it needs support with first. So great. We'll put those links both in the notes and in the chat, so you can feel free to check those out. So great to be here with you. And just as a heads up, so this week I was solo. Helen's traveling on vacation, and next week I'll be in Italy with my family. So excited. The 6 of us are going. We're gonna handle the heat wave. It's supposed to be like 97, 99 degrees. So we're gonna manage Rome and all of the sites in the heat wave. But Helen will be here next week, and then we'll both be returning in 2 weeks after that. So tune in. Love to see you here, and thank you. Have a wonderful trip. Stay cool. I will try my best. But have a great one. So great to see you. Take care.